Who's that? Is that your dog? Welcoming everyone back to the Cyclist magazine podcast. What's your dog called, Will?
Herbie. And no, it's actually, he's not. That's him. Someone's leaving. My partner's gone to pick up my parents, so he wasn't.
Is he ushering them out? Get out! Out!
No, he's
out!
Don't leave!
Get out!
Please, don't leave! Please.
Oh, see, he's staying put and they're all leaving.
Yeah.
Gosh, what happens now? Does he sort of mournfully crawl back underneath the Arga? I'm assuming you've got an Arga.
Don't have an Arga, but no, he'll sort of do a bit of pottering, like what's going on. But he knows that I'm still here because he can hear my voice. So it's not the end of the world.
Good. Well, I hope that dear old Herbie can be without for a few minutes. We'll try and keep this.
He's fine now. Once that initial door close panic is done, it's fine.
Phew. That's how I feel. It's the solipsistic world of the dog. If you can't see it, it's not happening. It doesn't affect you anymore.
Yeah.
But it's the separation anxiety of seeing somebody leave that causes the issue.
Yeah, and if we're gone, and we show him in the kitchen, then he's not happy for a while.
He hasn't sort of recreated his own mini Home Alone or Home Alone 2.
Not yet.
That would be good. You should film him because you never know, and he probably tidies up. So you never know when you get back.
Do you have a camera in there? Because we were training him to be better on his own. But it's mostly just pottering, panting, barking.
Great job if you can get it. Well, we'll try and keep this short and sweet because we've got a lovely long episode for you. And let's actually tell you who the guest is, although you already know because you clicked on the link. It's Andy Schleck, brother to Fränk, 39 years young, makes me feel old. Done way more with his life than I already have. Currently owns a couple of bike shops, is the ambassador for the Kitzbühel Horn Rad Marathon. Well, there's no horn. The Kitzbühel Horn is the climb. The Kitzbühel Rad Marathon is the event. It's a really wicked sportive in the Tyrol region, which I've been to. You been to Tyrol, William?
No, it's the only place in Austria I've been to is it's just slightly outside of Salzburg.
Gosh, well, I'd say get your ass back to Austria. Get to Tyrol. It's lovely.
I know. It sounds great. And our good colleague, Lawrence Kilpatrick, did the Kitzbühel Horn for Cyclist magazine. It's a classic climb.
He did.
And he's not stopped banging on about how hard it was. He said, Angleroo, what's the Angleroo?
Wow, why are we giving him further airtime? Angleroo is definitely... Have you done the Angleroo? I thought you have for some reason. That's definitely no offense,
been to the region,
Lawrence,
not done the climb.
Or even Andy. You've been to the region, yeah. I'd say I haven't done it, but I think on paper Angleroo is harder than Kitzbühel Horn. But just to give it some context, it's got according to Climb by Bike, maybe one of those statty pages, steepest 100 meters is 18%. The whole climb is 9.9k, although some people kind of call it about 7k. It's got 27 hairpins, which is a lot, but it's 12.3% average. Does pack them in, but 12.3% average is really, really steep as an average gradient. So anyway, if you fancy that, you can do that. September 25, and Andy Schleck will be there. But if you're not, and you don't know who Andy Schleck is, A, where have you been? B, let me tell you. Runner-up at the Tour de France in sort of real time, 3 times, 3 years back to back, between 2009, 2011. You're going to nod at me, Will? Is that correct?
I believe so.
And then,
could be wrong.
Could be wrong. No, I think it's right. And retroactively, there's a good word. It's not retrospectively. We're cyclists. We have a special word for it. Retroactively awarded the 2010 Tour de France after Alberto Contador was popped, as they say in cycling parlance, for doping, cheating, stealing what should have been Andy Schleck's number 1 spot on the podium that year. So he did get a yellow jersey in the end, not in the circumstances he or the sport would have wanted. So we do talk about that. Also won Liège-Bastogne-Liège in 2009. So bit of an engine, well, massive engine, multiple national TT champion. And yeah, involved in some really exciting and oh so near, gut-wrenchingly, sadly close Tours de France. So yeah, Andy will be coming onto the show pretty soon. And we do ask him what I'm about to watch. Whoa, and here's the dog. There's the hairy bullet, as if by magic. Herbie, fantastic. I thought, Herbie, you were all right on your own, mate.
He was. He wants to look out the window to make sure no one else is gone.
Well, fantastic. Well, and also to pin you down from leaving too.
Don't lose me. Not at Christmas, not again.
Well, okay. Well, let's just keep rolling. I like seeing Herbie from time to time, and now people can see his. Because also we're on video.
Yeah.
Now, so that's fun, isn't it? I'd just like to show you this mug, which I'm drinking from, which is the It's like the Bayer Tapestry, but it's about the time Eric Cantona kung fu kicked that Palace fan, which I think is really lovely. Our best mate Max got me that, which segues nicely into what I wanted to ask you about, Will. It's Christmas. This is our Christmas episode. It's going out on Boxing Day. Who knows what presents you'll have received this year, but you do know what presents you received in previous years. You do have a memory, unlike Herbie, who forgets that people do come back. What was your best Christmas present ever? Ever?
So it's one of those, it's quite hard to, when you're put on the spot 10 seconds before you ask the question, to remember everything. But last year got a really good one. So my sister moved to Croatia last year, 2 years. Maybe this was 2 years ago. Well, it was either last year or the year before where we got the present. I think it was last year. So her partner, who's Croatian, hence the move, drew, she's an artist, got little baubles and drew, painted us on. So we've now got a little bauble with me, my partner, and the dog painted on there, which is really nice.
Oh, that's delightful.
It's one of those, you can buy a great present, but so actually better if it means something, isn't it? And I actually saw, this is good fact, saw an interview with this might go straight over yours and the listeners' heads. So Taylor Swift, you know Taylor.
I've heard of her. Very successful recording artist.
She's got a lot of money, billionaire, right?
Loads of money, more than most countries.
Yeah. So her current partner is American football player Travis Kelce, and his dad was asked, what are you going to get Taylor for Christmas? And he was like, well,
big question.
He said, well, the thing is, you're not, even if you get her $100,000 present, it's not going to be, the size of the gift, the value of the gift that's going to, do the business. It needs to be something personal and something that touches on the heartstrings. And I think that's what, it's easy to forget that. And it's kind of a cost of living crisis,
Yeah. So you got to tell me what Matey Boy got for Taylor Swift.
I don't know.
It's
not.
Okay.
Well, it's not been Christmas yet. I don't think she knows.
No, I see. This is a recent interview.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping up with Taylor all that well. All I know is she didn't win the election for Kamala Harris, so me and her have fallen out massively. She tried though. Anyway, well, that's lovely. And what about the worst Christmas present you've ever received? And you don't have to name the person who gave it to you unless you particularly want that out there.
I don't know. It's quite difficult because you go up getting your Lynx Africa box sets, and I was never a fan.
Yes.
I was never a fan of the scent, so I didn't use them.
It's a heady musk. You don't want to go out. You don't want to go out during mating season around the deer wearing that. Goodness me.
So none of those presents actually got used. So I probably would, if I was going to have to choose one. Although I appreciated the gesture, obviously, didn't get used.
Yeah, I think, I can't confirm this, that my dad wears Lynx Africa because I saw him the other day and there was just really familiar waft about his clothing. I was like, I really recognise that.
Do you walk down the street with him and everyone that you walk past is like, oh.
They stare at him, but not for that reason. Well, if you're listening, Father, happy Christmas. Well, that's, I can totally subscribe to that. Would you like to know mine?
Yeah.
Best ever Christmas present? Can I just put my headphones down quickly? I can actually get it for you. This isn't even why I asked you, but I just remembered it's in my room.
It sounds like
I
it's
found it the
been
other day.
conveniently set up.
It does. It sounds massively, whatever the word is, conspired, but it isn't. And this really does rely on the fact that people are now watching this.
And obviously all our listeners will convert to video.
They will convert to video, and they'll have to, because at this point in time, they'll be swapping over because I don't know what the hell we're talking about because I'm about to show you something. But I'll do my best to describe it because But
also, great for us if you're listening audio and watch on video.
Yeah, both at the same time. Try and line the tracks up. Bit of fun. Bit of Christmas bants there, trying to audio check the video. That's not even a phrase, but it sounds right. This, Will.
James.
Is a snotling pump wagon. right? That's Warhammer, mate. That's vintage Warhammer. I really want it to be in focus.
I think
Why can't you focus?
Well, the software does tell us that it's better quality on the finished product.
Okay, good. So the snotlings were the sort of little mates of the orcs and the
Of
goblins.
course they were.
Yeah, and they're idiots, but they're fun idiots. And that's a pump wagon, which is a kind of, it's like in Labyrinth, the machine that scrapes away at stuff, or in Total Recall, there's one as well, like a kind of boring machine that crushes the opposition up. Obviously, it's made of lead, or it's made of white gold. This is all very relevant, of course, because Citadel Miniatures recently listed on the FTSE 100, one of Britain's most successful companies, and comes from where Will's from, Nottingham.
Yeah.
So it all links together nicely. And I got that when I was 11. It was back in the day we had to write away for stuff. So my parents did that from the back of White Dwarf, the magazine, and it arrived in a little polystyrene box. And I painted it after Christmas lunch and before Christmas tea.
Got through it all in one day.
I effing loved Warhammer back in the day. Yeah, so I did.
That achievement is also similarly on par to my Christmas Day, all in one day artistic achievement, which was breaking most of my Tracy Island toy. I think all the trees were gone by dinner time.
That is ridiculous. Because, I mean, I don't know what year that was, but there was a year when Tracy Island was so popular. Yeah, back in my day, I know turns out there's about 24 years between us, but it was so popular, Blue Peter had to tell you how to make Tracy Islands. Yeah. And you got an original one, a real one, and you broke it.
Yeah. The trees were because they popped up and it was quite fragile, actually.
Did you feel bad about that? Did it sort of ruin your Christmas, or were you a bit like, nah?
A little bit. I think if anyone's Christmas was ruined, it was probably my parents being like, "Oh Jesus, he's broken already."
Yeah, that was $44.99 from Toys R Us. On that note, imagining little Will Strickson breaking the trees off Tracy Island and little James Spender earnestly painting some Warhammer.
You know, I still used it and played with it for years. It wasn't like it came over.
Oh, that's nice. You got your money's worth. Great. Well, I mean, we should still probably flip over into the interview, because I did want to talk to you about, do you cycle your bike over Christmas? Have you done the Rafa 500?
I haven't.
Favorite piece of cycling kit? Anything basically cycling related?
Recycling.
I thought I'd leave. Yeah, I thought I'd leave it till last, and therefore bin it off when we run out of time. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Mr. Andy Schleck. Where are you joining us from? Are you at your shop, or I can see a yellow jersey just peeking over your shoulder?
I'm actually in our bike fitting studio. You can see here behind. So,
nice. Do you get involved with bike fitting stuff yourself, or are you just sort of overseeing everything?
No, I'm more like oversee everything. We have actually a physiotherapist who comes in by appointment, and then he does fittings here. Because I think it's better to outsource that. Because if I even like form someone here, a salesperson or myself, I'm not a physiotherapist. I don't know the muscles. I don't know the stretching. How the body works. I certainly know a lot about pros, how they should sit. But yeah, that's a very minority of the people who commute to work, who do occasionally bike rides. So I think it's better to have an external a physiotherapist who learned that and does it on a professional way, either than we think to put them all on the same position than Pogacar or Vingegaard. So I think it's we outsource it, but do it in house here in one of the shops.
Yeah, am I right in thinking that when you were at Trek in the early days, you were one of the first teams to have bike fitting with Cycle Fit guys, with Phil Cavell and Julian, his partner? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I think, before it was more like feeling based, how the riders felt the saddle, how they felt the position. But yeah, we really went into the science part of that, where you have more efficiency, what outputs, also working already on aero stuff, in the early 2000s, let's say, 2005. When I started, I already remember, we were already wind tunnel testing and physically testing out on the road as well, comparing watts, in different positions. So we're quite forward thinking already in these days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was that very different to other teams? So that would have been 2011? Was it 2011 when Leopard Trek came into being?
Yeah, but already before with Team CSC, Saxo Bank, with Bjarne Riis, who was a tech geek. who already, really worked on different aspects of performance. My first year already, we trained with watts back in 2005. Based training plans on watts. We did not care so much about the heart rate at that time. It was all based on watts, but I think we were the only team out there who were riding with SRM at the time. The only tool, which existed in order to measure your watt output. And basically, we learned a lot in these days from Bjarne Riis, and then, took it, all the knowledge, took it with us basically the whole career later, then Leopard Trek. Not everybody, went with us, but at least, the good guys we took with us, the guys who helped us perform.
Yeah. Do you feel like, difficult to know now because you're not racing, I'm sure you're still around lots of the current races and have an idea of what they're doing, but do you feel like professional riders do use heart rate and power meters a lot in their riding, or actually is there more done on feel than we realize? Because I think from an amateur point of view, people are always trying to find out, what watts Pogačar was pushing. And Will and I have interviewed various professionals. Peter Sagan, for example, said he never raced with a heart rate monitor. Pogačar has said he does so much of it on feel, really. And I wonder if that is actually the case, that despite the technology, when it really comes to those big, long, hard efforts, those big wins, those big stages, you just revert to your kind of intuition and your gut.
I think, the human body is so complex, and I think, these high-end, high-performed athlete out there, I think, I used to say, these are guys, they can beat the numbers. You don't know what's going on in you certainly can have ideas with the technology, what's your blood sugar, what's your heart rate, how much watts per kilo you should push at 2,000 meters of altitude or in low altitude. But I do believe, it's, you have to remember these guys, who are winning the stages and who are winning the races. These are, very, very, very minority of the world population. So these are the people who can beat the watts. I recall back, that journalists said, physically you cannot, do 450 watts for 45 minutes. But probably 99.9% of the population can do that. But the guys winning on top of, Tourmalet or on top of Alpe d'Huez or one of these climbs, I believe they can. So I think signs are good. But I truly believe, the guys pulling it off in the end and winning, they are still, go with the feeling, they feel, okay, I recovered today better than yesterday. I'm in a better shape today than yesterday. Or I have a better feeling, and that goes, you combine science, physical capacity and your gut feeling, which remains, I believe, the most important. We've seen it, and with, the best example is Pogačar, the guy is not putting on a show. The guy, he races, with passion. He races with his gut feeling, and he based his attacks on how he feels that moment, not on his training, on his science before. And I think that's also, still the beauty of cycling. You never know what to expect. You can have an idea, but the stage when Vingegaard won, no one expected, Pogačar to faint the last 10K that day. But clearly he went into a sugar flat or hunger flat or something more was not in order. And I think, that's what remains, the beauty of this sport, and that you cannot really predict or calculate everything. You certainly can predict a lot, and you certainly can, train with a goal and have a plan. But, it's including crashes, weather, conditions, mental strengths, physical strengths, everything together. You can never really predict an outcome of a race.
So when did you realize you were good? Obviously, you came from a cycling family. I think your dad raced, and obviously we all know your brother was pretty good on a bike as well. At what point did you realize, okay, no, I'm actually really good at this? And then when did you realize that it was going to be like stage racing, like the top of the top?
you never really are on the top. If you keep on winning, you always want to be better. You win today, okay, and you win tomorrow again. That means you were in doubt and that you can do it again. That's why you go again for the win. But yeah, certainly there are some milestones in a career. I'm coming from a very small country, Luxembourg. 600,000 people. Half of our population are foreigners. To reach out, and become on the world level, either in sport or in business. So it's a kind of hard. We are intimidated here. So you never really believe that you can compete, against France or against, the world, basically. I said France now because, it's next door, or Germany, these big nations. So kind of you're always intimidated and you feel a kind of privilege. And at the same time, you feel that you have a disadvantage because you are only a few here. So it took a while, I was junior, I was under 23, only for half a year, let's say. And then I went stagiaire with Team CSC and I got my contract from Bjarne Riis. And I said, well, he probably makes a favor for my brother because he was already riding in the team. But then I would say, I kept on fighting and digging and working hard. And then 2007, I finished then second in the Giro, which was basically the first time where I could play my card, or where the team let the leash go, let's say, and said, okay, prepare for the Giro, try to do your best. And I did quite well. So finishing second in the Giro, I was like, okay, I can be on the podium in the Tour de France as well. And that was for me like a bit of a benchmark where I get a lot of confidence and where I was not, the young brother anymore. I was my own identity was born within the peloton.
How important was it for you to have Fränk as an older brother? And at the same time, was it also difficult because, he's a couple of years older, he's there kind of first, you potentially have to emerge from his shadow at the beginning, I'm thinking?
Yes and no. An older brother is always a protective brother, no matter in which situations in life you face. When I was in school and I got beaten up by some other guys, my brother, he came and he stepped in and he saved my ass. Late on the bike, I think Fränk realized a lot earlier than me that I had, certain qualities on the bike which were similar than him. And I think he realized quite early that also certain qualities which were superior than his. And the role changed a bit, I came into the peloton. I was the first 2 years, the younger brother of Fränk, and I did smaller races, but I never disappointed when I had the chance to go into big races. And I do believe that Fränk was in a very comfortable position, having me there and me taking, the load on the shoulder, the pressure away from him, so that he could, continue building up his career. Because in the end of the day, it was a lot me who had the pressure, of people expected me to win the Tour. People expected me to win on Galibier. Never really Fränk. He was always like the joker. And I think it came hand in hand. It was good for him. Because I believe, he doesn't have the self-confidence and the mental, I wouldn't say mental strength, but the mental, the gut feeling racing type I was. He was more like calculating, okay, if I spend here too much energy, I might not, be so good in the next climb. And I was just riding and sometimes suffering like a dog in the first climb, but never doubted I could make it to the last climb and still. And if it didn't work, if I failed, I never asked myself any question. I said, really, it was not my day and goes for another day. And I think having each other, next to each other in the race, certainly he gave me a lot, but certainly I protect him a lot as well. Certain moments was really difficult because when you ride out there, it's a dangerous sport, it's a dangerous world, and Fränk had a few really bad crashes, and if it's a teammate, it's already bad. But if it's your brother, which, was, we shared a room as kids because we didn't have, a separate room, you are really, really close. It can be really difficult. You have this fear with you, which carries all the time. I mean, I lost a teammate, on the road in a crash, and having, Fränk crashing a lot was certainly also another disadvantage, which maybe other riders didn't have.
As like a young man going into that team with, Bjarne Riis and with, big names like the Cancellara, was that quite intimidating, or do you think having Fränk there did sort of help ease you in, whereas a lot of young riders might have been, on bottle duty for 6 years?
Yeah, when you come into this big team, I remember, you are the puppy, let's say, sitting suddenly, in the bus as a stagiaire, and pinning your number on, and next to me is sitting Michele Bartoli, which was, my all-time hero. His last race was my first race, and Andrea Taffi, these guys, they come from a very old Italian school, so you are the puppy, and you get a bit kicked around, and they don't really take you for serious in the beginning. But yeah, you are. It's like in life, when you start something, you have to, make your way up. You have to climb up the ladder, step by step. But having Fränk already performing well, and having they already knew Frank's character, and they knew, our house, where we were born from. They knew a little bit, our attitude was certainly an advantage, because they thought that I was quite similar, which was also a little bit the case. But when you are young and you come into these big teams with Bjarne Riis, and it can be tough, it can be tough. You can be also bullied at sometimes, but then for me, I responded, by being, on the training camps, the first one in the morning there, and, just showing the respect, on the dinner table. I always took care that I wasn't the first sitting, I let all the big guys sit, and then I was sitting down on the table, these small things which you do, in order to be liked by the others. But then in the training, when we raced in the training, we did the test up a climb, and then staying within the three last with Ivan Basso, my brother, and Jens, in a training ride, that was quite satisfying as well, because all the other guys dropped before me, and then slowly you get the respect, and then also teammates, they see potential and quality in you, and then suddenly you wake up, and then you are there where you want to be.
So you moved through your career with quite a few of the same teammates, and you primarily had, two big teams. CSC morphed into Saxo Bank, and then you changed up and left Saxo Bank and started Leopard Trek with a lot of riders from Saxo Bank. Were they mates? Were they genuine friends in the way that you have friends outside of the sport? Or is it more like we hear a lot in, say, football is a good example, like modern sort of professional football, players tend to be more colleagues. The teams try and build that kind of friendly, matey mentality. They help, because that helps a team win, because you're gelling together, because you're playing for each other. But it feels like they're professionals first, and they're looking after themselves first. They're not necessarily friends off the pitch. Is that a similar thing in cycling? Or are you actually a band of kind of marauding brothers who it feels like you against the world, us and them?
Yeah, certainly no colleagues. And I mean, I rely, not everyone, because I think you race together, the character need to match as well off the bike. But, I have WhatsApp groups, we call it the old gang, with Jens Vogts, Theodor Grady, Fabian Cancellara, Bobby Chuli, Carsten Krohn, these are mates for life. They are my brothers, honestly. We don't see each other every day, we meet each other at certain events. But, we went to so much fun together, let's say. You only see on the TV a very, very small extraction out of our lives, but the evenings we were sitting together, the times, in December when we sneaked out of the hotel to join somewhere, a nightclub, and had fun, and try to avoid meeting Bjarne Riis somewhere. poker nights we played. I could write a book about all the fun stuff we did. That was what bonded together. We did not really bond together, that much on the bike, because on the bike, you do what you paid for. You do what you're good at. But off the bike, there's a lot of time to spend, and certainly these guys, and they remain my best friends for life, I would say. But that doesn't necessarily count for everyone, because you have dickheads in the cycling world, and like you have dickheads in the normal off the bike life, but you just don't bond with them. But somehow, it also goes back together. What we achieved, in take a Tour de France as an example. You go to so many emotions in such a race, highs and depths, and you suffer together, you cry together, you celebrate together. These things they really bond, and it will never fade away. I was scared in the beginning when I retired from the sport that I would lose these connections, and certainly they go more on distance. But yeah, it's always a blessing, when we sit together and have a coffee and chit chat, and we came to the conclusion that this will never fade away, and we're actually planning, to see each other more often. But then one is in Australia, one is living in the US. I'm based here in Europe. But yeah, we have challenges and we have goals, because we think that was so unique. What we had together that will never fade away. So I would not even say close friends. I would even call them family. Honestly speaking, I miss them. But yeah, that's life goes on. You move on. Some have family, some have no family. Some work in cycling, some work off the bike. But certainly, these 10 years will never be forgotten in our brain and our hearts.
So, who is your favorite all-time teammate? Off the bike and on the bike are probably different things, so I'll give you 2 answers for that one.
No, I only need one. Well, for me, it was Stuart O'Grady, basically. On the bike, he came to the tour for one go only, to support me as long as he could. In the evening, he came to my room, and we discussed tactics, we discussed feelings, we discussed everything, how I should handle this situation. I helped him out of difficult situations, sometimes also off the bike and on the bike. And with Stuart, I always had a very, very special bond and a special connection. But then, again, Jens, Fabian, my brother, which I, we live still very close to each other. But if I had to pick someone, but there's different reasons why I picked Stuart, it would be Stuart.
And if you were having to get stuck in a lift with somebody, but you needed that other person to get you out of the lift, who's the best conversationalist, but also the most ingenious at getting out of close shaves?
Jens.
Is that why you had such a long career?
Yeah, probably that's why you have such a long career. Jens is just like a battery which never, you never need to be recharged. I mean, the energy the guy had on the bike, had off the bike, and still have today. It's quite amazing. I always tell him, I think you're mentally ill. There's something wrong with you. Like you gotta shut down at some point, but Jens never does, and it's quite extraordinary. Having 6 kids at home, coming to the races, performing, like a 25-year-old, training as hell, and then coming home, cooking for the kids. It's quite extraordinary what he achieved. With all the background he have, living in Berlin, which pro lives in Berlin, and no one, it's flat, it's bad weather. But yeah, Jens, he proved different, but it's one of a kind.
Do you think then you have to be, because you just named two riders there, Stuart O'Grady, famously very direct Australian, he's probably very different to lots of Europeans. And then Jens Voigt, very German, perhaps, in his just like, he's on, he goes, he's sort of efficient. That's a horrible stereotype, but it kind of works. But equally, like you said, he's kind of mad in his own way. Like the amount, he literally had shut up legs. I'm sure he's probably got it tattooed on him somewhere by now, but like written all over his bike, telling him just to keep going. And Jens, I think we've interviewed, and he said as a younger kid, in another world, he would have been diagnosed with ADHD. He was just bouncing off the walls. So what I'm getting at is, do you have to be crazy? Do you have to be mental to be a good bike rider? Because it seems like all the best ones are.
I think so. I think so a little bit, mental. My body's mental today, but it's also that not, you don't wake up from an office job and you do the tour. You get eased into it easier step by step. One day after another, you learn to suffer a bit more. You learn to deal with situations. I mean, I see every day today in my daily life that people are unhappy with their situation because it's bad weather outside. They sit in office and they are depressed and they feel miserable. And I'm just thinking, it's being 7 hours on the bike with 3 degrees and rain. And at the start, you don't know how you're going to cope with the next 10 kilometers. And 6 hours later, you're sitting in the bus and you say, well, that wasn't that bad. And next day you do the same again with the shitty conditions, and you never really leave yourself, to go into this dark place. But, and today I'm still know what I did and I know how it is to go through tough situations. But I get caught up today as well, that I'm grumpy because, something is not how I want it to be. But, I know how it is. So I think back, okay, well, listen, it's not that bad. You just have to change your perspective. But when you are a cyclist, you learn this step by step, and you just deal with this hard situation and suffering for hours and, on the bike and climbing up and constantly going over the physical of your capacity, pushing the boundaries higher and higher. You got to be a bit mental, because who does that? Honestly, because you don't really ride for your paycheck. There's no money in the world to pay enough, to go through so much suffering. But you're passion driven, and this passion, you define how big it is for you. And eventually, if it's big enough, you go through all these stages, and you got to be a bit mental. I mean, you crash, you look okay, there's nothing broken, you lose, 30% of your body skin, but you keep on pushing to come back as soon as possible in the peloton. You care about, you deal with your open knee and with your, your skin, you deal after the stage with it. And it's quite extraordinary how crazy you can get when you have such a big goal and when you are passion driven. And today, looking back, I'm like, sometimes I just sit there and I smile and I think back of situations, how mental were we?
Was there ever a day that sort of tested that sort of, it's going to be fine, I'm going to get back up? What was like the worst day that was really got in your head and was like, I'm not sure this is actually for me?
There's no really worst day. That's the same then when I cannot really mention one of the best days. There's certainly physical pain and physical suffering. It's going to fade away, eventually when you pass the climb or pass the finish line. But certainly hard days for me. One of the toughest stages always was the Paris stage in the Tour. Not physically, not because I wasn't happy that the Tour wasn't over, but it's like, you work a life long for this event, the Tour de France, and then you are with your team, and in Paris morning you pin your bag numbers on the jersey for the last time. And what's the day after? Your teammates, in the evening you celebrate together, you drink champagne, and you probably, don't remember the last half an hour you spent with them. And next day, everyone disappears. And this is mentally was for me very, very hard. I was crying like a kid because I said, I don't know what I'm going to prepare again for the next year. But, this big goal, this all this energy for the Tour is suddenly over. And yeah, that was for me mentally quite difficult to deal with also. Because again, it's not your colleague, it's not your teammate, it's your family. And some of them you only see back maybe the year after, maybe end of the year if you're lucky to have to race again with them. But physically, I could not really. Obviously, when I won, I on Galibier, was a 70 kilometer, going through hell. But I got the glory to win that stage, and certainly physically very, very hard and a lot of pain. And but I don't even recall that. I recall the last 10 meters when I left my arms in the air. So it's hard to define the hardest day on the bike.
So it feels like looking back at your career now, it sort of does seem like it's characterized by the really mentally tough times and like the victories that you did get. Obviously, like the Tour de France, you didn't get the immediate satisfaction of winning that at the time. You didn't get to celebrate in yellow jersey on the Champs-Élysées. You finished that tour thinking you hadn't won, and then retrospectively got that. How hard was it to keep, a few times being that close to winning, and then not quite getting there, but being like, okay, I can keep pushing, keep trying. And then obviously in the end, you didn't manage to win it as you were riding it. How do you look back then on your win?
Yeah, well, it's of course not a satisfying victory, and I wouldn't even call it a victory to be honest, because your victories, there's your memories, you count on them. I was not on the podium in Paris. Looking back, I was standing second on the podium, and certainly this glory was stolen from me. On the other hand, I won the 2010 Tour. I'm in the books. I was not the one who sent Alberto to the anti-doping test, and certainly I was not the judge and the lawyers who discussed over months this case and decided to strip him of the jersey. And of the Tour title. So certainly, I'm the 2010 Tour de France champion or winner, or call it whatever you want. But I have no memory whatsoever on that victory. In my mind is, okay, I'm second, which is a decent, good place in the Tour. And I finished on the podium. And I had a hard time, to accept that after I got quoted winner of the 2010 Tour de France. But then one day, I said, well, there's no discussion at all about that, because what can I do? I was riding, and I am the guy who got flicked and then got stolen this glory. But certainly no memory whatsoever on winning in Paris. Today, it's my legacy that I won the Tour, and I'm also think, that I am, I deserve that victory, because certainly there was something not in right with my contender. But other than that, no feelings at all.
When you were on that second step podium in Paris in 2010, at that point, I'm assuming you just thought you'd been beaten by Contador, but the thing in your mind would have been what became known as chaingate. So the point at which you drop a chain, you have a mechanical, and everyone says the etiquette of the sport is that you wait in that situation. And we've seen Pogacar and Vingegaard do similar things despite being rivals in the last couple of years at the Tour de France. So that, we know that is part of the sport. Are you looking at Alberto then, middle of July, end of the Tour de France, and thinking, mate, this should be the other way around. You should not be there. This is not right for that reason.
Yeah, certainly. But again, there's no rule written that you cannot do what he did. But I think it was not a very fair sportsmanship. It was sportsmanship. It was not sexy. It wasn't nice. But he was allowed to do that, and he was nervous, and I was, very, very strong that year, in a good shape. And the funny thing about this is that the time I lost that day with the chaingate. Was the time I lost the Tour in the end.
Yeah.
And, I knew that when I stepped on the podium, and I'm like, I should stand there. I deserve that place, because clearly I was the strongest that race. But then again, I can't turn the time back, and I can, just live the moment. So I tried to still, enjoy the second the second place on the podium in Paris there. And I was actually thinking, okay, I got to come back and do this again and win the Tour. It was only the year later when I got called from Christian Prudhomme and from the organization, and then was invited to Paris to get then the jersey and the trophy from the President Hollande at the time in Élysée, which was certainly also a nice experience. But I get nothing is comparable to the stage in Paris.
Yeah. Immediately afterwards, did Fränk step in, big brother, and just take Contador to one side and just be like, bro, this is not okay, and we are going to basically kick the shit out of you the next time we get to race against you, because you're a marked man now, because you've done this to my literal brother, and we are brothers on our team. This is not how we get treated.
Yeah, to be honest, I wanted to move on with the race.
Mm-hmm.
The day after, Contador, everybody booed at him and people, spit at him. And I was the person out of my initiative. I went to the TV, national French TV, after the stage after where the chaingate incident. And I spoke to the French media to get the message out that people please should, come and support and stop booing. I got a lot of quotes from other riders. I shouldn't let him off the hook that quick, but I wanted to get on with the race, because I still was believing that I would, get that yellow jersey back. But then again, it's a race, and I competed so many days against Contador that also I had to calm myself down. I said, okay, we move on with it. When you get flicked by someone, and I get angry at someone. If I get angry at someone, it only hurts me. It doesn't hurt the other person. So it's something I try to, put in another case and save it somewhere else than on my hard drive and move on with it.
The career when you were racing, this sort of timing-wise, must have been it seemed like quite an interesting time from the outside, because it sort of felt like at the time you were coming off the period of where this is like when doping is at its height. Armstrong finished in 2005, but obviously we didn't know that until later what was happening, but you knew there was something going on. And then the period when you were sort of racing, it felt like afterwards, like that period is done. But then stuff keeps coming out, like Danilo De Luca, like Contador. How does that feel as a rider at the time? Are you thinking about your rivals, like, okay, this is still going on? Or are you just having to race it assuming everyone is clean?
You race assuming everyone is clean. 100% all the time, every race. But, when then these things keep on popping up, the Ricardo Rico story, then later, stuff with Contador, then, the Floyd Landis stuff, and you are disappointed because, you believe, okay, there was EPO in the early days in the 90s, quite a lot. There's now a biological passport, and the biological passport works. It worked also at this time, but some thought they were smarter, but someone wasn't really smarter, because everyone got caught at some point who was doing something wrong. I truly believe. Big names felt, Jan Ullrichs, even Lance Armstrong. It catches you back in life later on. Contador, the big names out there, they get caught at some point. So the biological passport works, and you do all these sacrifices. You fill out every hour where you are, and certainly you go into the race and you believe that you are in a clean environment in terms of your opponents are clean. I also believe that my career, I would say 98% of the people or 99% of the people I raced against were clean, certainly towards the end of my career, more than before. But you never know. But that's again, that's like everything in life. People do tax fraud left and right. People, always try to find a shortcut somewhere. But certainly in sports, I believe, and in cycling, I believe, because we invented the biological passport back in 2005 by Bjarne Riis. It was an internal team affair, the biological passport. WADA and UCI and anti-doping commissions, they took over our program. And I believe in that. Even though today I'm a big fan of cycling. I truly believe that I watch a clean sport. I'm convinced, and there's no gray zone. No, you know exactly, where's the line. And, people claiming about, we fought, blah, 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 we were in the gray zone. No, that doesn't exist. That is an excuse for people who don't want to admit or who get caught. But there's no gray zone. When you're an athlete on that level, you know exactly where the threshold is, and you know exactly what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do.
So what's your opinion then on the stuff that's come out in the last year about the carbon monoxide tests? Do you think that goes past the grey zone from what it's being reported as?
Not at all. Not at all. It's not prohibited by the anti-doping body. If they prohibit it tomorrow and they do it the day after tomorrow, then it's cheating. Then it's not allowed. Then you try to use some kind of technology to perform your performance or to boost your performance, which is not allowed. But as of today, there's nothing against it. So when you are a high-end athlete out there, and you try to maximize with carbon monoxide your performance and get 1-2% better. For me, I believe it's okay. But if there's so many questions about it, then I think, the anti-doping body or government should just, put it on the banned list, and then it's quite easy traceable what I heard of. But no, for me, I cannot really say it's okay, because I read that it's, not very good for your health, or actually quite bad for your health. But I think you cannot call it whatsoever or not associate it with doping.
And then you worked with Johan Bruyneel at Leopard Trek, right? So then what was your relationship with him like? And what did you think when he was sort of implicated in the whole Lance Armstrong saga?
Well, my relationship with Johan Bruyneel was never a very good relationship, but not necessarily. I mean, I had a lot of respect for him when he came into the team. But yeah, the chemistry was never really there. Basically, he came in and he tried to change a lot around me, a lot of my racing program, and I did not really cope with it well, and we had a lot of disagreements over that period, and I never had a really good relationship with Johan Bruyneel. I truly believe today I have a better one with him. Because I have nothing to do with him.
And so, looking at those guys in your life who were the kind of the mentors, the older guys, possibly the guys that are the management, they're not the older racers. Bruyneel's obviously not on this list, but who would be someone that helped guide you, kept you on the straight and narrow, motivated you in those moments where it must have felt hopeless, after a crash that takes you out of the Tour de France, say, you crash at the Dauphiné and you can't compete in the Tour that year. That person that keeps you going, who is that would stick out?
Don't get me wrong, I truly believe that Johan Bruyneel is a genius in cycling. I think he's, I wouldn't call him a godfather because I don't want to give him that much flowers, but he knows a lot. He knows a lot about race tactics. He can see a lot of things which other people can't see. Bjarne Riis was a mentor for me. Even though we also separated in not good terms back in 2010, we reconnect again afterwards, and we have an okay relationship today. But Bjarne Riis, he was truly a mentor. I have, when you go to school and you're kind of scared of your teacher,
yeah,
but that he's a good teacher. That was my relationship with Bjarne Riis. A lot of respect. I feared him to a certain point, but I truly listened to him. I listened a lot to him. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from him, which I use today in my daily life. I learned about leadership. I learned about teamwork. That was Bjarne Riis for me, certainly the most influential person in my career.
Thinking back to your career, 2010 was a difficult, almost so triumphant, but a difficult Tour de France. 2011 comes along, and it's a second place again, this time on beaten, or the result changes round on the last day of the time trial. Cadel Evans just takes it. But how do those two tours compare? Because 2011, for example, has one of the greatest stages and performances in modern Tour de France racing. You finishing on the Galibier, that 70k solo attack, the highest stage finish in the Tour de France, at that time, and 5,000 meters. Like, what an epic day! 5,000 meters of climbing. So I wonder, how does that 2011 Tour de France compare? Full of fond memories or still bittersweet?
No, bittersweet. I mean, I was, second in 2009, second 2010, 2011, I was going for the win. I had Team Leopard was founded. Everything was brand new. We had the best bikes in the peloton. Everything was there. And Cadel was never really a threat the year before because Cadel was always Cadel. There was always a bad day where he lost everything. But 2011, that didn't happen. He made a perfect tour. I had the yellow jersey going into the time trial with 30 seconds advantage. I knew that that's going to be, a close call against someone like Cadel, and in the end, finishing second again in Paris was quite disappointing, if I'm honest. And you know that you don't have 20 more times. That you only have a certain years where you can call this performance off. And comparing the two tours, I mean, 2009, I really take it out of it because I was, really, really satisfied with finishing second. Lance Armstrong on the third step of the podium, and then Contador unreachable that year. And 2011, going in, with a clear goal to win, with a clear mindset, to be the best, the strongest in the peloton. Even though I won on the Galibier and Epic stage, certainly the best victory in my career was for me the 2010, the more exciting tour, the more close call to victory, let's call it like that. Not because I won it afterwards, but this battle with Contador, which I never really had with Cadel, this mind game between Alberto and mine remains stronger in my memories than 2011.
How do you feel towards Contador?
I love the guy. I believe I'm a lot smarter today, and I think a lot. I'm a bit mental as well, but I truly believe. And I told him this. I said, Alberto, we are true very strong characters. We are true alpha male, call them whatever you want. So it will never be a very good match. But on the other hand, I'm really grateful that I had Alberto in my career, to be honest. And there are a few reasons why. Certainly, he was my motivation to get up. He was the guy. I didn't want to win the tour. I want to win. I want to beat Contador, and I'm not a quitter. I keep on fighting. So that was the first reason. But the second reason, without Contador in cycling or in my career, I would have won a lot more stages and certainly 2 tours. But the memory would not be the same. This was epic. And I'm, proud now. My kids, they start to understand what Daddy did, and I'm showing him this battle between him and me, and this is what formed my career a little bit, and this is what also forms my memory, and I truly believe my legacy. And without him, it wouldn't have been the same. And fairly saying, I won a tour 2010. Later on, we talked about the reasons, but I wouldn't have had such a good career, I believe, and such a strong, memorable career without Alberto on my side. So I told him this. I think he did not really understood what I meant, because there's still somehow a language border between him and me, and my Spanish isn't at the same level than my English or my French. But when I quote him in a few interviews and they call him and they say who was his biggest rival, he always quotes me. So I think it's a bit mutual understanding that he feels the same than I do.
And do you feel that your career certainly could have actually been longer than it ended up being? So you retired in the end of 2014, which is only 3 years off a stellar 2011. Well, a couple of years where, as you say, you think you're so close to winning the Tour de France year after year. And then a couple of years later, you're still a young guy, but you're having to retire. Do you feel like luck wasn't on your side? You could have gone on for longer had circumstances been different, or was that the natural? Was that always going to be the natural end?
No, not at all. And I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't finished. I had this quite hard crash in the Tour, stage number 3 to London. Had for 5 operations on my knee, tried to come back, and at some point, doctors told me that if you believe that you can still, do a tour and without with your knee, you can forget it. You can continue riding your bike and you can continue being a pro. And that was the most one of the most hard news I got in my life, because I didn't want to be a guy who prepares for. I mean, I have nothing against people, winning 4 days of Dunkirk, or smaller races, but I won already a Tour, and people want to see me, battling in the biggest climbs in the world, in the biggest event in the world, and I didn't want to ride just for a contract, for money. I want to ride to win for passion. So I took a decision that make a cut now. And try something else in life. Taking that decision, I wasn't really aware about the consequences, which this would mean for me personally. But looking back, was still the right decision I took. And I mean, I'm today with 2 feet in my life, so I don't regret taking that decisions. I could have earned a bit more and have more on the bank account if I continue 3, 4, 5 years for riding for contract, but that wasn't me. That wasn't the way. That is not the way I was functioned. So,
how did you keep level-headed after retirement? And did you think of big Luxembourger rider Charlie Gall, who an incredible climber, an ethereal talent, won the Tour de France in 1958. Several other big races too, a couple of Giros in there, and the guy had a really difficult retirement, didn't he? Famously, but not quite true, he went off to be a hermit living in the forest for a number of years. That's not quite true. He just did quite a lot of fishing and hunting. But he was somebody in the canon of Luxembourg cyclists who rose right to the top and then had a really difficult time coming to terms with not being a professional and not being a top professional anymore. Was that going through your mind, that kind of story? And were you thinking, okay, I've got to have X, Y, and Z lined up to keep me going so I don't end up slipping into, propping up the bar, drinking beers and telling old stories, or just losing my friends, losing my connections with those guys who are still potentially racing? Did you have that kind of, forecast and that plan?
I thought that I figured it all out. I remember like yesterday, going to, having a press conference, and I announced my official retirement, and I thought it's all going to be fine. And, I'm still going to be around and I can still, do stuff in cycling, and I still be the same person. But the reality was completely different. The reality was brutal, tough for me. I went to a really tough time. What I did not realize that for me, the day I retired from the professional cycling, I retired from cycling. I retired from my life. I gave up my identity because who is Andy? Who's Andy Schleck? It's no one. It's Andy the cyclist. I'm from young age on, I was always identified as Andy the cyclist, but I cannot name myself anymore because I'm not in cycling anymore. And this I completely underestimated, and that was a very, very tough time. And I believe I touched rock bottom at some point for me, because the first day was fine. I said, I'll go fishing because I love fishing. And I have a lot of time to do stuff, which I never did. And after 2 weeks, I'm like, I got to figure out what I want to do in the future. And I started to hate cycling. I started to really, like, I didn't want to hear anything from it. My bike I did not touch at all anymore. I give all my stuff away. But that was all a process I was going through. And only a year later that I realized that everything what I hated was everything I missed. And I got back in touch with cycling, and I made a plan. I said, well, I don't want to be a sport director, and I still need some distance to the pro peloton, but why not? I am a material, a cycling freak and a geek. And when I was a kid, I didn't need to go to any toy stores. I want to go to see bike shops. And so I said I can create my own bike shop, and I will create the best bike shop in the world. And I start traveling to the US and visiting shops left and right, and took notes, what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And basically started then, creating a small store in the center of Luxembourg, where I am here, with all the needs, I believe, cycling needs or cyclists need. And started coming back into cycling, opened one shop from 4 employees, scaled up, opened a second shop, going back to the tour as a brand ambassador for Skoda, teaching cycling, teaching, my religion to other people, having, being booked for events for public speaking about teamwork, motivation. And I truly believe that today I'm a lot more in touch with cycling than when I won the tour.
At what point did you feel okay to watch the tour? You say you sort of still hated the pro peloton. How many did that take, like several years before you could even watch it?
No, I would say in the beginning I watched it a little bit, but I was incredibly sad because I see these guys, my friends, they are fighting there, and I'm sitting here, getting fat, drinking beer and eating chips. But I would say, back 2016, 17, I wanted to come back to the tour. So actually I took my wife and my older son, and we said there was a stage not far from here. I said, let's go and see it on the site as a fan. And some of the organization people, they recognized me, and they gave me badges, and they took me up to the VIP, where then all the ASO guys were again. And then I said, okay, I need to find a way that I can still be in the tour, but not being too close to the media, because I believe the stage is now dedicated to other riders, so you never really see me, but I do what I do best. I talk and explain cycling, explain what's the tour about, and give my expertise about stages, and have a very good knowledge about cycling, and enjoy the tour.
You and Chris Froome are the same age. I think there's maybe a month between you, and he didn't really start his peak until after you've had the top of your career. So you basically had, even though the same age, you won your Tour de France, you'd done all your podiums, and then he started his journey. Does that feel weird, looking at basically a whole career, and he's still riding now, and you've had this whole other life? How does that feel to sort of see that of someone your age?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I truly believe he enjoys riding. But then, okay, I'm completely honest. I understand that he have a nice contract. I understand, that he wants to fulfill his year and then go into retirement. But a little bit, I think it's a little bit, I feel a little bit sad for him. Not sad that he's still riding, but sad that he's not winning anymore. And on the other hand, coming back from a crash or from an injuries like it's not really a surprise to me that he's not there winning the tour anymore. And I also can understand that he signed a very good contract with the team, that he wants to continue and not stop before. But I think it's nice when you win on top. I think it's nice when you achieve, and then you go as a champion, and now he goes as Chris Froome. But again, economical wise, I understand it completely. But it's a little bit sad for his legacy. Or sad is maybe the wrong word. I would wish Chris would leave with the yellow jersey as a champion, and finishing the career differently than he does now.
So did it feel really quite good to see somebody else who would have raced against, seeing Mark Cavendish come back this year, get his win number 35 in a way where maybe you might have looked at him choosing not to retire at the end of 2023 and kind of gone, shit, don't do a Froome. Don't just wind your years down and not leave a champion.
Yeah, I mean, with Cavendish, he never stopped fighting. I mean, who would have given Cavendish a chance, 3 years ago before he went to Patrick Lefevre? No one would have bet a penny on him. But that's Mark Cavendish. Then he comes back, he wins these stages. He's like, maybe even like he looks stronger than before, definitely more confident than before. And then, coming back and, beating these all-time records, basically, puts him on another scale. Cav is not a cycling star. Cav is he's a legacy, he's a more closer to Hollywood than anyone else in the peloton ever been. And I'm really, really happy for him. I met him quite recently by coincidence. And he also know that no one would have bet a penny on him. And I think that's cool, but never stopped fighting, never believed that he could not do it again. But then, you have also to be careful. You talk about the sprinter and Chris Froome, which, you need to be, every stage in the tour, you need to be 100% sharp. Cav is a bit a different situation, but the story is quite similar. Even though the sprint is a quite short effort, it's a different effort. So I think the chances of Cavendish still winning a stage would be a lot bigger than, having Froome winning a stage.
You sponsored or had your name on the women's team for a few years. I think it started maybe 2018-ish, around then. What was the motivation behind that? And how does it feel to see, even like from when you started, the growth in women's cycling since then has been absolutely massive? That must be pretty good to see from your perspective.
Yeah, well, that was one of my projects. I want to, increase, the increase women in cycling, and because I think there has been a lot done, but I think there's still a lot to do even now. So we will keep on doing campaigns, and this was another campaign that I want to do to increase, the women in cycling, bringing these sports closer. So we created a team, in order to get visibility, get more visibility for women on bikes. We want to do a club. Then it was a team. Then it was quite a nice team, competing internationally. At the same time, we want to create a platform for athletes for, create something between amateurs and World Tour. And that was my team. And do something for Luxembourgish riders. And we did the project for 3 years. And there was also a goal, to do it these 3 years. We did not continue beyond, because basically, everything was suddenly so good organized for women's cycling everywhere in the world that I think there was no really need for it anymore. And also, we had a few very talented young cyclists here who were engaged with the team, who rode for the team. They made a step up. One stopped, but certainly there was not no Luxembourgish need anymore for the team. And but I think we completed, our project. We increased a lot of visibility to women's cycling, and that was the goal we did from the beginning.
And so now, no team at the moment. Who knows what might happen? Maybe you'll do a pivot like Cancellara and one of your old mates and get yourself a Conti team, try and move up to World Tour. You got your bike shops, doing punditry as well. But I know you're also ambassador for the Kitzbühel Rad Marathon, so big sportive in Austria. So can you tell me a bit about that? And can you also tell me what it's like to ride up the Kitzbühel Horn, which I think is probably one of the hardest, most horrible steep roads. 10Ks, 12.5% average gradient, 27 hairpins, 18%, 20% max. Tell me what it's like to ride that, but sell me the sportive as well. Tell me about the fun side bit.
23%. Yeah. So why did I choose the Kitzbühel Rad Marathon to have them promoting the event? A few reasons. I love this region, Tyrol in Austria. I spent basically every family holiday in that area. And then Kitzbühel-Horn, I did as a rider back in 2005 in a time trial in the Tour of Austria. And at that time, I realized, like, I didn't know that climbs like this existed. And the Kitzbühel-Horn is the steepest climb in Austria. And so I did it again while I was there in holidays. And I learned about this Kitzbühel Radmarathon, which includes the Kitzbühel-Horn is the last climb of the Kitzbühel Radmarathon. And I started scouting the route, and I think it's I think it's the most beautiful ride you can do. Frankly saying, the scenery is extraordinary, and doing 4,500 altitude meters in 220 kilometers. That's the length of the event. I think it's quite fascinating because you don't really race, you ride, and it's a complete different atmosphere because you have these quite hard climbs, even though they are not that hard. But the last one, the Kitzbühel-Horn, is quite hard. And all my mates and friends and people I ride with during the event, they said we cannot finish the last climb. I said, you done 210 kilometers, you can do 7 more kilometers because the climb is only 7 kilometers long. And never ever I have left someone on the road. So I think that's a huge motivation. And for me, one of the favorite events. And I think, I need to be passionate about something in order to do it. I'm definitely passionate about this event because I think it's a ride which is unforgettable. Everyone I take there, they come back next year. It's held this year in September under the sunshine, under Austrian sun. So I can really rely on that. And if you done Kitzbühel-Horn, they will shuttle you down with the gondola. You are, doesn't matter if you do 9 hours or 12 hours or 13 hours, you are the most proud person in the world when you finish this ride. And I can relay on that because now I was standing on top with almost tears in my eyes just by finishing that ride. So it's every year held on September 9th. I'll be there, so cheering for everyone, finishing that ride.
Amazing. Do you feel like perhaps this could be fertile ground for that reunion with Stuart O'Grady, Fabian, Jens Voigt? Get all the guys racing it with you and then see if you can leave some of them at the bottom of the climb as you just blitz it to the top. Because I'd say you're probably the best climber out of all of those by a country mile.
So going back to that group with Stuart and Fabian and Bobby Schulig, my brother, Matti Brachel, Kurt Asle, Arvesen, we do have a goal. So the goal is that we will ride with a bike to base camp of Mount Everest.
Wow.
We need to plan dates. We need to commit to it, but that's the goal. And I said, how cool would that be, if this old gang, would do that challenge together. So that's out the line. We're still planning on it, and we're not sure if it will be 25, 26, or 27 that we all commit that we will do it. But I keep you posted. Kitzbühel Radmarathon, I truly believe, it's getting the guys there, they will just be angry at me and mad at me because Kitzbühel-Horn is a tough one. But again, a beautiful one.
I think that's the highest paved road in the world, isn't it? Like 5,200 and something meters going up to Everest Base Camp. I can't remember the name of it.
It's the highest paved road, and it's only paved for the last, I think, 7-8 years.
Yeah.
Where you actually can ride a bike up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, you got to get on the carbon monoxide training to be able to adjust to the altitude.
I've spoke to some people who did it, and they say it's amazing that you actually really feel that you're on the top of on the roof of the world. Yeah. Going up there, it's not that not that hard of a climb because it's quite steady slope all the way to base camp. But once I done it, I will tell you how it is.
I'd say if there's not a documentary team filming that ride of you guys going up to that, then someone's missing a big opportunity.
And then also presumably you then have to climb it. Like who is it? Sagan did it with as a team building exercise, trying to climb
Kilimanjaro
K2. Yeah.
Yeah, they did that as a team exercise, exactly.
I don't think they made it though.
No, we're even discussing, because if you keep on from base camp, you still have another 1,200 altitude meters where there's a gravel road going up. If we should, keep on and go to 5,900
Wow.
meters of that. But I think, no, it's a big challenge. It's on the bucket list, but we just, have to commit to it and then, move forward and do it.
Fantastic. And finally, Andy, because this is going to go out as our Christmas episode, so if you're listening to this, it will be Boxing Day. What are you doing for Christmas? What are the Schleck kind of Christmas traditions, and how does it compare now to what you could or maybe couldn't do when you were at the end of a season? You're at the end of 2010 and you're looking at 2011. How does Christmas vary, retired versus professional?
I'm not really a big fan, to be honest, of this Christmas time and the lights and the music in the radio every morning, the same song for the last 25 years. But yeah, I have to put a romantic face on, of course. We will have a Christmas dinner. Then on the 25th, I will do a ski week with my family. Yeah, but of course for us it's a family affair, so we will all eat together on the 24th. We will not get into a fight. We will behave well. But yeah, when you for us it was always a kind of a family affair. So we never try to leave for holidays over Christmas, because we want to be at home. We want to bring this to our give the presents to our kids. But I'm always very happy when it's January 2nd, and I can, switch on the lights again and focus on my goals ahead. Because I certainly, I'm still very ambitious, not with winning a tour, but with different things in life. And I have a few milestones to do. And for me, from the 22nd on until the 2nd, it's just, like sitting in a waiting room at the doctor's until it's your turn. So I'm, happy when I can clock 2024 and start 2025.
Nice. Well, Andy, good luck with all those milestones. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much,
on the Cyclist Magazine podcast, and hope to hear about you getting to nearly 6,000 meters, having swapped your... Oh, you can take an all-road bike. I'm sure you sell them in the shop.
Let's do the Kitzbühel Horn first.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Will and I are still talking about Warhammer, but we did actually pause then to talk to Andy afterwards, because, again, peek behind the curtain, see the tiny man playing the organ, but we do this in different chunks. So we recorded with Andy this morning, and Will and I were then chatting post-interview. And you don't often say this, but you're like, that was like the nicest guy. And he really was.
Yeah.
Not that other interviewees aren't, but like, I really felt kind of held by Andy. He felt very safe.
Give you a nice hug.
I reckon he'd give you a really nice hug, but he wouldn't pull any punches. He'd also correct your hug. He'd also say, actually, slightly hit me in the mouth with your shoulder. So can you readjust, recalibrate next time? Straight talking.
I thought it was really nice that even in talk about how emotional I was, talking about hitting rock bottom, talk about, obviously how he fell out of love with cycling and all the stuff with Contador, but then he still turned it around and he was smiling and he was happy. And isn't that just Christmas joy?
That is just Christmas joy. And also, he's probably been asked so many of these questions,
over and over
again. The guy
again.
retired in 2014. It's been 14 years since, that's up there, isn't it? Chaingate is up there with, the Armstrong
10 years, not 14 years.
Stare. No.
Since he retired, 10 years.
Yeah, but Chaingate was 2010.
Yeah.
But we're both right, so that's wonderful. More Christmas cheer, compromise, both be right. Don't argue, kids. It's not worth it. Just put the arguments aside for at least 2 days.
Doesn't matter who wins the game.
It doesn't matter. It's who broke Tracy Island that counts. But the point being, he's had to answer questions on things like Chaingate. One of the most iconic moments of captured sort of tour cycling, I think, as in had cameras, lots of information around it, lots of footage. And he didn't say, "Oi, don't ask me that. Go and read my answer somewhere else." Or, wasn't monosyllabic and kind of go, yeah, well, you know, and in that classic diplomatic way, I was expecting him to say, but it's just, you know, it's just sport, and we had our differences, and now we're the best of friends. There was still a healthy amount of pissed offness, which I really rate him
Yeah,
for.
massive
I think
respect
that's
for
fair
that.
enough. I'd be really. Would you be pissed off if you were him?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Especially like,
definitely.
you know, he knew that was the amount that he lost the tour by. I'd be
I mean, that is
absolutely fuming.
galling, utterly galling. 39 seconds.
And like
I
you
think.
said, if I was Fränk, I would be even more,
Yeah,
you know.
I'd be.
Or
Yeah,
one of his
I would.
teammates, take him around the
Yeah.
corner, pin him up against the wall, being like, what on earth do you think you're doing? Go lose
Yeah.
yourself a second on the Champs-Elysees, Alberto, come on.
And like, you know, I'm not saying that Alberto Contador wasn't an incredibly gifted cyclist and the rest, but I would absolutely back Fränk Schleck in a fight, because he's a bit of a, he's not a big lad.
Your base, scrappy.
I bet he's a bit scrappy, but if Jens Voigt's there in the background,
Yeah, you've
sort of
got no
like
chance.
tapping a rounders bat menacingly
Yeah.
in one, I don't know if they have rounders in Germany. But yeah, I would. Yeah, I definitely back them. But no, what was I going to say? With that level of bad luck, I'm sort of amazed in some senses that he managed to keep going in a kind of almost like Raymond Puliador, eternal second, still managed to keep going. Because the other thing we didn't talk about is that he could and should probably have won the 2007, I think, Giro d'Italia, which Danilo De Luca won, and De Luca was later busted for drugs, but at the same time, it wasn't a doping infraction that was, I'm assuming, was they considered to be relevant to the 2007. So, but at the same time, it's unlikely that he only started doping for a small amount of time in his career, let's be honest. So you've lost out. You could have been at, you know, in Rome, in Paris, top step, two biggest Grand Tours, no offense to Velta, but the two biggest Grand Tours, biggest things to win in cycling. They could have been yours.
One thing that I think about with that is, you know, he spoke about retiring early and obviously how hard that would have been. And was clearly, you know, I couldn't cope with that. But imagine going into that position, retiring when he did, if he hadn't already been given that Tour de France win. He wouldn't have even had that to try and pull himself out of, you know, being so close, being almost like the nearly man. But, you know, you never know what his life could have been like if he'd have had to retire early without getting that, you know, he talked about legacy a couple of times. You know, that would have been really difficult.
That would have been really difficult. And just as a side note, a while ago I recorded, which may go out as a podcast, a chat with an author called Paul Maunder, who wrote a book about Charlie Gall. And we talked about Charlie a little bit there. But Charlie Gall, I don't know if you've come across him, is a really interesting character. This guy who was a kind of real loner, young breakthrough whippersnapper. They called him the Angel of the Mountains. And he climbed like, you know, people sort of said he climbed like this kind of, like almost like a kind of ratchet, slowly turning the screws, climbing like a metronome, just crushing people's spirits. And so it was just considered just amazing, and had his fair share of success. Wasn't particularly well liked, and then retired, having tried to kind of keep clawing onto, you know, the idea that he was an amazing rider, and then disappeared apparently into the forest to live in a cabin as a recluse, grew a massive beard, got fat, completely unrecognizable, and then kind of re-emerged after a while, but somehow did something that, or Schleck has done something that Charlie Gall didn't manage to do, which was start a successful business, because apparently Charlie Gall opened a bar and then just sat there getting pissed until there's no money left, and then just packed a bag, left his wife, and went to the forest. Yeah, so there's a tale for our times. A bit like the Gruffalo.
Yeah, and you know, you almost said Shrek there. And you know,
I did.
Charlie Gall, I'm sure he was, what are you doing in my swamp a couple of times.
I'm sure, and you wanted to get that in somewhere.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Well, it is Christmas.
Yeah.
Shrek is sort of strangely synonymous with Christmas, despite the original Shrek having nothing to do with Christmas.
Yeah, I guess that Shrek the Horse thing they did. Plus, it's one of those things. It's like your James Bond, Harry Potter, Star Wars. It'll always come back on at Christmas time.
It will. Okay, well, that's a good note to end on. What's your favourite Christmas film, or what's your go-to? Not because there's probably, what's the safe, lovely, holds you, cuddles you like Andy Schleck can cuddle you Christmas film?
It's just quite nice to watch Harry Potter at Christmas.
Okay.
The early ones. Give me the first Harry Potter film.
Mm.
They have the nice little bits. They're all innocent young children. They have the little Christmas. They play chess.
Yeah.
It's quite nice.
Yeah. You could have had Die Hard.
I knew you were going to say that. Cliche.
Yeah. You could have had that one with Billy Bob Thornton in it that's comedy. It's called Jingle All the Way, maybe?
Probably.
Could have had Gremlins.
Not seen that.
Great Christmas movie. You haven't seen Gremlins? Right. I'm ending this and you're going to go and sit down and watch it, even though the school day has not finished yet. On that note, Will, Merry Christmas. Enjoy your Boxing Day. I hope you've enjoyed your Boxing Day. Depends when you listen to this. Hope you enjoyed Christmas Day. I hope you got something that rivaled the ball with little pictures of you and the dog. Herbie was on the ball as well, yeah? Yeah, good. I'm pleased. Pleased with Herbie. He seems like he needs some love. Right. Merry Christmas, one and all.